enough of the segregation. Today I'm doing something for everybody. We're doing clothing. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Mountain Vibes. Thank you so much for stopping by today. So today, I'm gonna be going over clothing. Gonna go over your base layers, the mids, and all the way up to your outer shells. So now there's a fair bit to cover, so let's get right to it. All right, so now to start off, we're gonna do base layers. So this is something that everybody needs. If you're either skiing, snowboarding, hiking, snowshoeing, any sort of like physical activity outdoors. Now, the two great important things of why you need them is because A, they provide warmth, and B, they keep you dry. So they're gonna keep you dry in the sense that they're gonna help pull moisture away from your body. And at the same time, with you being dry, it's gonna help keep you warm. Now, you're not gonna want something that's gonna be super baggy. You do want it to fit fairly snug. The reason for this is because the tighter it is to your skin, the more it's gonna be able to pull the moisture away from your body. And as well, it's also gonna be able to help retain that body heat. Now, there's two types. You could either get a synthetic or merino wool. So if you tend to run a little bit colder, I would suggest getting something in merino wool or even just a thicker synthetic. Now, a lot of these items will not have any temperature ratings, but they will have a range from, say, 1 to 3, 1 to 5. So usually the lower the number, the cooler it's going to be, the thinner the material is going to be. And obviously the higher the number, the thicker it's going to be. So if you're someone who, like myself, tends to run hot, I usually just wear like the thinnest one possible. Now, it still keeps me warm because with the fit of it, it's going to be able to help retain my body heat and at the same time pull the moisture away when I do sweat. Now, merino wool, on the other hand, is fairly warm. Like this t-shirt I'm wearing right now is actually made out of merino wool. Fairly warm, nice and comfy against your skin as well. This isn't like quote unquote your grandmother's wool anymore. It's very technical, super comfy to wear, does keep you dry. So just a matter of which one you want to go to. They do vary in price points. Merino wool will be the more expensive option, whereas synthetics will be a little bit less. You can probably pick one up for anywhere between 50, 60 bucks, whereas merino wool starts at around 120, goes all the way up to close to $200. So there will be something for everyone's price point, just a matter of depends on what you want. Now, the plus side to having merino wool is that it doesn't necessarily smell after you sweat in it for the entire day. So if you're doing a trip or anything like that, one merino wool base layer can essentially cover 4 synthetics. Now, the reason why I say covers 4 because synthetics, when you do sweat in it, it does tend to smell. So it's saying if you're going on a trip, instead of you packing 4 of them, you can just pack 1 merino wool and you'd be set to go. And just one other thing though with base layers, they are a must. You cannot necessarily go out and wear just a standard cotton t-shirt or a cotton hoodie. The reason for that is because once they get wet, they stay wet. And then there's that whole saying is cotton kills. The reason for that is it stays wet, you get cold, you're gonna have a miserable time on the mountain or wherever it is that you are. So I highly advise getting some form of a base layer. You will not regret it. Okay, so now the next layer is going to be what's referred to as your mids. It's not quite the base layer, it's not your outer shell. It's just like an extra added bit of warmth or an actual layer in a sense. So there's 2 ways to kind of go about this. You can either go with a fleece, something like this. This is my personal one. I've had it for several years now. I think I'm due for a new one actually. So something like this, same thing. It's not cotton. This is some form of synthetic. I'm not exactly 100% sure. But yeah, this thing is super warm. I wear it with the thin base layer underneath, and this with my shell on top of it, protects me really well, and it also keeps me nice and warm and dry. So there's this option for those of you who tend to run a little bit hotter. For those who tend to run a little bit colder, you can go for almost like a jacket. So this is another synthetic jacket. The great thing about synthetics though is compared to down is that when this gets wet, it will still perform, it will still keep you nice and warm. So for those, as I said, for those of you who tend to get a little bit colder, who want to have more layers, but not necessarily having that added bulk and that added weight, you can go for something like this. As I said, super comfy, fits underneath a shell, so it's going to work really, really well. Same price points are relatively the same. You can pick up a fleece for probably about 60 bucks, all the way up to like a synthetic or a down jacket, which could be anywhere between $250 up to the way to $400 depending on the material. Okay, so now let's get into jackets and pants. So these also vary in price point. You can find a jacket for around 260 bucks all the way up to north of 1,000. So a lot of the times it's the materials that do dictate these price points. So something on the lower end, it's going to be not quite as a durable face fabric. It's not necessarily going to have the highest end of waterproofing. Whereas if you go to a really high-end jacket, it's going to be a lot more durable. It's going to be a lot more burly. The waterproof rating is going to be the highest you can potentially get. So it's just a matter of figuring out what price point you want, where you're going to be using it, and then you kind of go from. So when you're looking at a hang tag on a jacket, so say something like this, you're already going to get a fair bit of information. So one of the bigger things that you will find is going to be the waterproof rating. So this is where you're going to see something that says, 10,000 mils, 15,000 mils, 20,000 mils. Now, this number is telling you how waterproof a jacket or a garment actually is. The higher the rating, the more waterproof it is. So what these numbers actually mean is they take a small little snippet of the material and they subject it to a water test. So what happens there is a jacket that's 20,000 millimeters waterproof rating, it can withstand 20,000 millimeters of water before the actual fabric begins to leak. So if you're somewhere where it's very wet, so let's say I live on the west coast in Vancouver, so I need something that's going to be a little bit higher because the snow's a lot wetter, plus it rains a lot in the city too. So this is going to be a very nice waterproof jacket. If you're in somewhere parts of the country or other parts of the world where it's a little bit drier, you're not going to need something with such high waterproofing. Can get away with something that's around 10,000 millimeters or so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little chart down in the description just to kind of show you the different types or what the different ratings are and how waterproof they actually are. It kind of dictates, so depending on what you're looking for in a jacket or a pant, you can kind of go from there. So the second number you'll probably see on a hang tag is going to be the breathability of a jacket. So if waterproofing keeps moisture out, breathability helps vapor go back out of the jacket. So if you tend to sweat, if you're doing highly aerobic exercises or anything, if you tend to run warm, you're going to want to get something that's a little bit more breathable. Something that's going to be 20,000 millimeters will allow more vapor to go through. It's going to be a lot more breathable. Whereas, let's say if you don't necessarily need all that breathability, you can kind of cut down your costs and get something that's not as breathable. Same thing, they're going to be rated around 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. And obviously, the more breathable it is, the more expensive the garment will be. So how they achieve this, though, is by putting tiny little micropores on the inside of the jacket and allow vapor to escape. So once again, just kind of figure out what your needs are in a jacket, but these are the two major things. So you have your breathability and your waterproofing, and go from there. Okay, so now I guess the last thing I'm going to go over is just the fit of a jacket. So yes, there are ski brands, there are snowboard brands, but for the most part, they do the same thing. The major difference is that they're just cut slightly differently. I snowboard, but I wear a ski jacket because A, I just like the color, B, I like the fit. So it kind of goes, it depends on what you want. Now, generally speaking, a snowboard jacket will have a lot more room up in the shoulders just because, you kind of move your arms around a little bit more, and they're a little bit bigger down in the waist because you stand with your feet further apart, whereas a ski jacket, it's a little more of a trimmer fit. It goes back more to that Euro styling, a little bit more trimmer, a little bit more stylish, but at the same time, it really just all depends on what you're looking for. There's no right or wrong when it comes to picking, a jacket. It's all personal preference. Skiers can wear snowboard brands, snowboarders can wear ski brands. You can have a ski jacket and snowboard pants or vice versa. It's really up to you. You can mix and match it, do whatever you want. But that's pretty much the major differences, is really just the fit. You are going to kind of come across the same features. Some of them will have pockets on the inside for your goggles. Some will have different wipes. Depends on what the manufacturer decides to add in. And also, the more bells and whistles, the more expensive the jacket will be. All right, everyone, so that's clothing for me for today. So just to reiterate, everyone must have a base layer. Depending on how cold or warm you get, just change the thickness of it. Get a mid layer as well. It's going to vary. It's going to help you adding in that extra barrier between you and the elements, help to keep you warm, keep you dry. And as well, when it comes to the outerwear, just kind of figure out what it is you want, figure out what style you're looking for, where it is you're going to be, how waterproof you need it to be, how breathable you need it to be. So just use the hang tags, use that as your cheat sheet. Kind of all the information should be laid out there for you. So hopefully you found this video informative and helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. If you like this video, hit that button. Subscribe if you have not already. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and I'll see you in the next video.